Hey, my name is Joshua, and this channel is dedicated to my calling, which is bringing forth a vision of humanity that is both communal in nature and particularly concerned with the freedom and free will of every single individual. If this is the first of my videos you are watching, I must disclaim, I believe that my message is one of the most important ones for you to hear. Not because I've got something you need, more you've got something I and the rest of humanity needs. So if you find yourself clinging desperately to the back of an archaic and destructive system just to stay afloat while watching your irreplaceable minutes, hours, and days slip away into oblivion, then this is your lifeboat. This is our chance for something better. Welcome home. That's my new introduction. Hopefully it's not too long, but gets to the point of what I'm trying to do with my channel and these videos. So today's video, I'm going to talk about the truth about disinformation. And to give you a little background, if you're not familiar, the foundational goal of Communitas Christi and her allies is to secure the 4 rights for all people of the world. And those 4 rights are the right to be loved, the right to know, the right to believe, and the right to be. I'm going to expound upon all 4 of those rights in other videos, and it's also going to be an underlining theme. So this one, when it comes to disinformation and the truth in reporting and media and so on and so forth, this is going to obviously concern the right to know. Now, the people, our brothers and sisters that have lost their way and have chosen to work against those 4 principles being obtainable by all of our brothers and sisters globally, and anybody who, if there's anybody who's not actually a human, I'm actually not even going to include them because that's just something else. The people that are humans and are still working against the whole of humanity, essentially, they're going to be called the others. And so the others are the ones that are denying us the right to know. And this is a big deal because there's a couple different ways of looking at this. I see that free will is a critical indication that I have a certain place in the higher order of things, that I can decide my own fate to some degree. And I know that people are going to argue against free will, but I'd like to point out that that's a real ultimate waste of time and a logical fallacy. Like I wouldn't even... Well, let me just illustrate why. So to argue against free will, I will argue for free will, and then I can make many, many arguments for free will, because ultimately I believe that if presented with enough information, you're going to see in your personal experience that you have free will. So I believe you have free will, and so I believe I can sway you to seeing that you have that free will. However, if you're to argue that we don't have free will, and sometimes I've heard it's almost like a necessary illusion for our own sanity or comfort or whatever, our sense of import, whatever the base reasons are for that illusion. You're arguing that someone who doesn't have free will, who is already arguing for free will, that they come to your side. If you think about what you're saying someone doesn't have a choice in arguing for free will, basically. So I find it one of the most ridiculous things to possibly argue. Although I have a logical reason to argue for free will, I don't see that there's a reason to argue against it. It's more of a waste of time, unless you're just putting things out into the thought space that other people can contemplate. But you really think about what you're saying when you argue against someone else, especially if you get yourself emotional or worked up. That makes no sense at all, because you're arguing against someone who you believe doesn't even have the free will to decide to do something different. So I believe in free will. I believe it's one of the reasons why we are special as humans. And if the people that are deciding that we don't have the right to know what's going on out there in the world in general and withholding information from the masses, if they're human, they are acting as the others in opposition to what is right for humanity and each other. And if they're non-human, spiritual or otherwise, then they're anti-human. It's as humans, we need to pull control of our destiny back into the hands of humans, and then they need to be quality humans. And I'm just saying that because there's so much information out there, you really don't know what rabbit holes. I'm not illustrating any of those particular ideas or rabbit holes to be true, although I will say immediately I've seen what seems to be spiritual and demonic possession in people very high up the food chain and people very high up in the entertainment industry food chain. So I definitely believe there's some sort of what appears to be spiritual. It could be interdimensional. There's layers of what it could be. And again, I'm not trying to hold up one particular thought of what it could be. I'm just saying if it's not inside outside completely human, then that's our first problem with any of the problems that we're dealing with, and that's our first problem when it comes to disinformation. And if it is all 100% human and it's just others, then we need to wrestle the truth out of them and get the truth back before the masses, because free will is divine in nature, and as such we cannot exercise it without knowledge. We need to know what we're here doing, and we need to have that information. Also, ultimately what it represents is these people are, and it's not like they were just holding back information like, oh, they don't need to know about aliens, we're just going to leave it be at that. But they are actually exercising and planning out, and you can kind of see yourself, they're exercising and planning out things that are affecting you and me and our children, and they're not telling us. So this is our problem, is they're planning and they're dictating our life to us as though we were cattle. This is an issue. This is beyond taking away free will. This is dehumanizing in nature. And then when we turn around and we do see what's going on, we have to appreciate the concept of controlled opposition, which is a lot of what we're watching happen in America right now. And I'm going to give you two examples. If the first one offends you, wait for the second one. If the second one offends you, go back to the first one. If they both offend you, I don't know what to do for you, because you seem to be somewhat lost. But I'll give you an example of controlled opposition, and this is going to go to the what we would call the extreme on the left, the extreme on the right, alt left, alt right type of energy. But the mainstream media is the channel of disinformation. This is the main source of disinformation. And I'll show you how, through omission, that they're doing open disinformation. If you want to prove either of these to yourself, you'll just have to dig a little bit deeper. Well, the first one, you don't really have to dig deep. You can dig into part of it if you're totally unexposed. But the first one's going to be the protest that happened when President Trump was running the first time. And there was these big protests at his rallies, outside the rallies. There was problems. There was cops called. There was violence. And the mainstream media was telling everybody, America is so upset at the thought of this horrible person running for president that they're just showing up right there where his fans are, and they're just trying to stop him on the spot. That's how passionate. And they had tons of coverage, and all the mainstream media reported this as, this is definitely real. Americans cannot take this guy and would do anything to prevent him getting elected. Then online, there was a whole bunch of information about how all of that was misinformation and these were paid actors. And there was even as far as advertisements for, be a paid protester, yada, yada, in this city. People were finding ads on Craigslist, so on and so forth. So this was the information. I'm sure there's people that say that's disinformation, but it doesn't matter, because we can objectively see that that was indeed disinformation, and they indeed seem to be paid participants or plants. And this is part of the controlled opposition. So this is designed to make it look like people are fighting on the extremes of the left. They're willing to scream and get violent just to stop the preliminary process of open and fair elections. Because that's what that comes down to. When you're trying to intimidate people, that's Nazi behavior, and it's not representative of the people on the left that I know and love in my family. I have a lot of family on the left, and that's not their behavior. So if it's not them and it's not their party and it's not real, then we need to talk about it. And it definitely seems that it was not real. And I use the example of 4 years later for the re-election, and the apparent lack of any protesters when the re-election, and the mainstream media never talked about it because it was not, they're part of the disinformation machine. They're not going to tell you, hey, look at what we did. They're not going to tell you. They're going to treat you like a child and just lie through omission. They're just going to tell you what they want you to think about instead of what, and this time around, it seemed to be a lot about January 6th, and there was a lot of energy that direction around this election and accusations of this past election and accusations of presidential election, because we've now passed a 2-year election too. Anyways, so they told you one thing, and then there was tons of information. There's a whole community online, and you can investigate it yourself, that those were all paid plants. Those were all basically agent provocateurs. And because lack of them doing anything 4 years later, I would have to, 4 years later, I would say, yeah, that definitely seems like plants. And some people would turn around and say, well, Josh, 4 years later was at the point of a global pandemic. I'm like, yeah, but a lot closer to the election, definitely in the middle of the pandemic, people were getting a lot closer and a lot more violent and a lot more angry for Black Lives Matter. And that protest, which I could use very recent events, unfortunately, we had a tragic death in America at the hands of police. And just out of respect for the family and the principles, the theoretical principles behind Black Lives Matter, I'm going to omit the races on the cops, but it was police. Police apparently beat some young man to death, and it was caught on body cam, and there were preparations for Black Lives Matter protests across the country, but then absolutely nothing happened. And so that might indicate that a lot of what we saw Black Lives was the same type of activity from these others, which is, again, to incite and to have controlled opposition, to make the left look so extreme that the right finds them repulsive, and then in my next example, to make the right look so extreme that the left finds them repulsive. So the next one I've already mentioned in passing is going to be the January 6th incident. And again, mainstream media, this source of disinformation, is having you believe that these are just a bunch of God-fearing, American-loving Trump supporters, and that they just wanted to act violent and chaotic. The very first reason why you should doubt that mainstream storyline is because although the media is openly not displaying it as such, the president was speaking when the people started going towards it. So the contingent of people that went in, the people you saw on camera, they weren't huge fans of the president. None of them. Because the president was still talking. And then if you want to take one step further, you look at the police opening up the gate and waving people in on camera. So Trump fans, all real Trump fans, would have been over there waiting for the president to finish his speech. So whoever was going in on the Capitol weren't even Trump fans. And then why is the cop waving? I mean, you can see this information. If you're sitting at home on your beautiful, comfortable couch waiting for the TV to tell you, then you're forever going to get what corporations want you to know. And all you're going to know is what the corporations want you to know. And if that's fine, if your whole entire basis of reality is based on what's most profitable for Wall Street, then so be it. That's fine. But you're a horrible progressive. Don't ever say you're a socialist. Don't talk about wages. Don't tell me about anything, because your entire mind is shaped for maximum profit, designed by psychologists. It's engineered for you to be a sheep for the corporation. So you are a slave to Wall Street. And if all you're going to do is get your information from corporate media, then so be it. But you're out of the conversation, and you're really a liability to yourself. To have that much faith in the future of humanity, your family, the children, if you have any, the future of humanity, to put it into the, you have, and I mean, if you're going to be completely checked out, then so be it. If you're not going to vote, you wouldn't be watching this video. But if you're not going to get engaged and you're not going to get informed and you're not even going to try, that's fine. And free will. Nobody's forcing you. But if you're going to be active, and you're going to be vocal, and you're going to talk like you know things, then you have a responsibility to yourself to actually know things. And you have to start with the concept that we're living in an age of disinformation. You don't own any of these major companies. And these people are working in unison. And a lot of the things that we think are going on are this same group of people attempting to divide and conquer. And I fear, based on my knowledge of America, that conquering's been happening. Conquering happened a long time ago. If not 1913, with taking over our monetary system, just over and over, there's been, incidences from the military industrial complex running amok, to the welfare state running amok, the racist. Obviously, I'll make a video about how racist the welfare state is. That those two things alone pretty much take up, most of the astronomical federal budget that we have. So we've been taken over a long time ago. So this isn't about divide and conquer. This is about divide and destroy. That's the phase that we're at, and that's why, as much as I hate these type of videos or dislike, talking with a heavy tone and sharpness, the truth about disinformation was naturally one of the first videos that need to be made. So for now, I'm going to try to leave off on that note. We have a responsibility to seek real truth, and the people that are intentionally keeping the truth from the rest of humanity are the others, and they are working in opposition to us and to our divine purpose, our right as humans, our birthright. So that being said, if you like this video, go ahead and give me a like, a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, go ahead and comment. Tell me why. If this resonates with you and you're excited about my work here, please share this with others. Until next time, this is Josh with Communitas Christi, signing off. Peace.